Hi, welcome to the first episode of Crazy Therapeutic Asians in 2019. For this episode, we are talking about acculturation, assimilation, and amalgamation. And in order to do that, we invited on a guest speaker. Our talks were really good, and the whole thing ran really long, and I had a really hard time cutting down a lot of the good conversations we had in here. So instead of, deleting all of that, I decided we'd split this episode into two parts. And today you're going to be listening to part 1, where we go over the definitions, and next week, hopefully you'll get to see part 2.
Hi, I'm Connie.
And I'm Kent, and welcome to Crazy Therapeutic Asians, where we talk about mental health in the Asian American community. Today, our topic is assimilating into whiteness, or acculturation.
Acculturation.
And in order to help us talk about that, we're very excited to let you guys know that we've invited someone to help us talk about it.
That's right. We have this extra space here for
And
a guest.
Warmly welcome
Sam the therapist. Dun, 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 dun.
You guys are crazy.
So excited. There you go.
I'm happy to be here. So excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me and having me join you guys today.
Yeah. When it comes to acculturation, I think it's a very important issue to talk about. I know we have the sort of Asian American perspective, but America is very diverse. And we wanted to get more perspective than just our views.
Meaning Black Americans, or African Americans, whichever you want to go by. We kind of know about to a degree, but I don't think everyone really quite understands what it means, how it impacts first generation Asians, or even second and thereon.
When I meet people who has been here, their grandparents have been here, the experiences are so different. And the way they see things are very different, too.
It's very strange when I encounter, especially an Asian American who's been here for like several generations. And I'm like, oh, I am a lot more Asian than I thought I was, I guess. And I thought I was pretty Americanized.
I'm going to read what it says in the Webster Dictionary. Acculturation is one of several forms of culture contact that has a couple of closely related terms, including assimilation and amalgamation. Although these three words refer to different changes due to contact between different cultures, there's notable differences. What is the difference between acculturation, assimilation, and amalgamation? Acculturation.
Cultural modification of an individual, group, or people by adapting to or borrowing traits from another culture. Acculturation.
Is often tied to political conquest or expansion and is applied to the process of change of beliefs or traditional practices that occurs where the cultural system of one group displaces that of another. That is not what I thought acculturation is.
Me either. Me either.
I would have flipped it.
I would have flipped acculturation with assimilation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what I thought acculturation is that I thought it was when you come into a new society, you blend. So you keep the traditions and the important stuff in your beliefs.
You acculturate.
You acculturate.
Right? Sounds like it makes sense.
And then you blend as well to the culture that you're living in.
Right.
Not due to political conquest.
No.
That is
And
really interesting.
And displacement, no.
No.
So how do they describe assimilation in this then?
Where assimilation refers to the process through which individuals and groups in differing heritage acquire the basic habits and attitudes and mode of life of embracing culture.
Okay.
So I think I flipped it.
My head would have, assimilation sounds so, intense, right? Assimilate. Yeah.
Right. As what? Boards?
Yeah.
I was about to say, you both did the accent of board. I like that. I like that a lot.
So how do we explain this, I guess, in simple terms, especially maybe for some people who don't speak English as a primary language?
I think assimilation, when I do think of assimilation, it's taking on the norms, right, of the majority dominant culture.
Yes.
For example, it could be the language. It could be also the mindset of what that majority believes that you need to...
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, let's see.
Explain like I'm 5.
Okay.
I know.
Okay, my turn. My turn.
Your turn.
Assimilation is just like the board. So you go into a society or go into the group and you try to merge into that group as possible. Be like wherever you're going into as much as possible.
Yes.
So
And as quickly
as
possibly, right?
possible. So you try to talk the way they talk, you try to look the way they talk. So there's little to any resemblance to your original culture, ethnicity, and more to where you are. I don't know. Your turn. Go.
Oh God.
Go, Kent. Go.
Now I have to do it.
Yeah.
If I'm to explain it super simply,
Okay.
probably just acting more like the place you're at, like where most people act like. Acting like most... I can't talk. Acting like how most people act in the place you're at.
Behaving like them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess like if you're in school, right?
Yeah.
If you came from one school that everyone sat on the floor, right?
Yeah.
And then you come to another school and everyone is sitting in chairs, you assimilate to the norm of that new classroom, which is sitting in chairs versus
Gotcha.
sitting on the floor. Because you think about that even with food, right? What is the place? Is it Moroccan where you sit when you go to a restaurant? You sit on the floor. Do you eat with your fingers too?
You eat with your fingers.
Right. Where some people are like, "What the heck are you doing?" Right.
Right.
But that's the norm of that. And so when you go to Morocco or even I think even Ethiopia. I think they typically eat like that too, right? And so that's what you do. You eat with your fingers. Where, other places you use a fork or a spoon and a knife. That's
That's the norm of where
So-
you are.
Is it a good thing or a bad thing in your guys' view?
I
Assimilate?
think there's a lot of gray in that.
yes. Right?
Right. The idea that's popping into my mind right now is like something I will refuse to assimilate with. Is just a bowl of rice or a plate. I'm Asian. I pick that shit up and I eat like this. But then the people are like, "Oh, you're not supposed to pick up your plate and like put it towards your mouth." And I'm like, "We're using chopsticks. This shit cannot, scoop soft rice. So I'm gonna, put it into my mouth."
I love you for saying that because I feel the same way. Because I'm like, there is no way.
I can get it from there to here without things dropping.
Right. Yes. Yes. I agree. And what is it? If it has a bone in it, you pick it up and eat it.
But I throw this at you.
Okay.
I know like my parents and my grandparents, right? They have skills of a ninja using that chopstick,
Yes.
right? And then when they see me use chopsticks, they go, "Oh, you don't use it right."
Yeah.
Because I'm literally going, okay. Like they're choosing to scoop, but they can grab that piece of duck over there, debone it, and just throw it in their mouth like nobody's business, right? I can't do
How
that.
do you?
Proper chopstick hold is like this spacey looking thing.
Okay.
Okay.
You can pick stuff up, right?
Yeah.
Like as a kid, I've always done like this thing where it crosses.
Oh, I think I still do that. That's
It,
why.
it works. I can pick things up. I can bring it to my mouth, but they're like, "That's not right." And I'm like, fine.
That's one of my tells.
Learning to like hold them
Yes.
properly.
That's
is
how
just,
I
like,
hold it, though. I do. I learned.
See?
It took me forever.
I assimilated.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That's the right way.
Yes. My son does. Bless his
crossing.
heart.
Yeah.
Yes.
I do the way your son does it. I do it like
You're a bad Asian.
I swear, I totally am. I'm not even joking. Like, we would be at restaurants, and my parents would be very impressed by my fiance's chopstick skills, and then they look at me and go, "Oh, well, Connie doesn't know how." So I'm like,
Your fiance is white, by the way, for those who don't know.
another subject.
Yes. Well, I think I have like a 1% or something of Asian of some sort.
So that's
in there.
what makes it easy.
That's what makes it easy. Picking up from my very, very recessive gene there.
But it's there. It's coming out.
Oh yeah.
So let's figure out the last one, which is amalgamation. Refers to the blending of cultures rather than one group eliminating another, acculturation, or one group mixing itself into another, assimilation. So I think the goal.
The gold sounds like amalgamation is
Right.
like the cool one, right? Like I'm still respecting and valuing the parts of me and my heritage that I find important. But I'm also, respecting the place I'm at and trying to, I guess, fit in a bit.
It's like I think it's trying not to ostracize. I think there's a sense of like we are one, you're one, we're separate, right? And amalgamation seems like, you know what? We kind of accept that we're different, and still we're all humans. Like there's a basis of similarities as well.
Which I think fundamentally, if we want to go to the core root of America, that's America, right?
An amalgamation nation.
Melting.
Amalgamation nation.
Right.
There we go.
Right, yeah.
I like that.
Say that 3 times fast.
Oh shoot. Amalgamate. I can't even say the first one now. Amalgamation nation.
Amalgamation nation. Yes.
I'm not going to
Amalgamation nation. Amalgamation nation.
Oh.
Whatever.
I just
failed.
challenge.
Yes.
I'm not going to say
Yeah.
that
Sure,
word.
you're not going to try it once
Yes.
for us?
Amalgamation nation. That's why I don't try.
Fair enough.
Okay.
What do we think about assimilating, acculturation, and amalgamation, or just it all in totality, as it relates to our own individual heritage cultural, right? Because culturally, us three are Americans, right?
Absolutely.
Which within that, for me, I'm made up of not just history of Black people from Africa or slavery, from the Midwest, who parents have roots in the South, but now I'm a native Californian. So all of that kind of makes up me and my culture, right? Culture. My Southern roots coming out. Culture. So what does that mean to you guys? What do you guys think about that?
Right now it's like, so I don't fucking care what people think about me. This is who I am, right? But then our Asian culture is very collective. I do care how people think of me because I represent everybody in my family. So if I am this certain way, it's like I'm disrespecting my parents. I'm disrespecting so many people. How do we blend that? Individuality versus collective.
I mean, there is a theory of what they call acculturation, right? Like when people first move here, they go through these processes. And a lot of times with second generation children, they have to go through that process. And when I first learned about this, I was like, oh my gosh, I learned exactly that, right? I grew up with my parents being the primary contact, and what they told me, what they explained to me was what I knew. So I just held those beliefs. Going to school, and I grew up in a largely white town, like I had to learn a lot of things. Like I had no clue who this Jesus figure was, and like I was very confused.
Were you made fun of as being either the one or the very few Asian person in your school?
Definitely.
Yes.
Kids
are cruel.
mean.
They are.
And they see the basics. I mean, they see what's different about you and what's not.
A lot of the eyes,
Yes.
a lot of the ching chong, whatevers, and like Buddhas, and I'm just like, what?
I like that. Buddhas.
Right? And I remember all through middle school, high school, there was just this constant back and forth within myself to decide, do I want to embrace my Asianness or do I want to be more Americanized? And I'd go through phases where I just like be racist, but no, straight up racist against like fobs, fresh off the boat Asians. I'd be like, I hate you guys. Assimilate to American culture. Do what you're supposed to do. Don't be so Asian. Don't come here if you're only going to be Asian. And then other times I'd be like, oh my gosh, I love these people. I want to just be Asian. I want to be more Asian. I wish I can speak Chinese or Mandarin, whatever better, and like can watch all these shows and listen to Chinese music. And I would just hop between these two worlds where I like loved it and then I hated it. It wasn't until I would say like grad school that I finally found this melting point for myself where I'm like, oh, I don't have to be either of these. I can be a weird mixture of the two. I don't have to be white or Asian or fobby. I'm just gonna be like me, which I think is like the best version of it. But
I like
that's
that.
me.
Culturally, for Black Americans, we've kind of had to create our culture. I always thought it was cool to know another language, and I always wish, I wish we still had our language, whatever that language was, from the motherland of some sort, and so I do feel a certain way when people don't hold on to some of their cultural identity from historical aspect and do the amalgamation,
nation,
and do a blending and learn how to maybe do a balance of it, right? And still have pride in being an American, but also pride in your own history.
All right, so thanks for joining us this week for part 1 of our discussion on culture and acculturation. Join us next week for part 2 of our discussion. To learn more about Sam, you can visit him on his website, yourlifeempowered.net, or follow him on Instagram at Sam the Therapist. As always, you can follow us, Crazy Therapeutic Asians, at Crazy Therapeutic on Facebook and Instagram. And to learn more about me, Ken, you can visit my website, therapeutichealingpractices.com. And you can learn more about Connie on her website, healinggenerationscounseling.com. We'll catch you next week.